All right, so we are picking back up at number 48. Olivia is growing roses and keeps track of how much fertilizer in ounces she adds to the soil and how many blooms each rose bush has. She finds a linear relationship that can be modeled by the equation y equals 1.345x plus 4. When will Olivia have only 4 blooms? So this equation represents the number of blooms. I notice there's a 4 back there. Okay, so when is it that she's only going to have 4 blooms? That's the y-intercept. Okay, remember, the y-intercept looks like 0, 4. So Olivia is going to have 4 blooms when x is equal to 0, right? So an x is representing the amount of fertilizer. So when she adds no fertilizer, meaning 0, then she'll have 4 blooms. Number 49, which equation is the best fit for the data in the graph? All right, so first of all, hopefully you guys look at these points and notice that there is a negative slope, okay? That should jump out to you that there's a negative slope. And since there's a negative slope, you could eliminate the 2 possibilities that have positive slopes. They also have negative y-intercepts, and if you notice, look at where this is up here. That's got to have a y-intercept that's close to positive 75. So now if I go back, I'm looking, C has a y-intercept of 75. 8's way down here. That's too low, so D is out. So just by process of elimination, my line is going to have a negative slope, and it's going to have a y-intercept of 75. Which graph best represents the line of best fit for a scatter plot? Remember, the line of best fit is the line that goes through the scatter plot that has approximately the same number of points above and below the line. All right, so B and D are out. They don't even go through the points. Okay, so now I look at A and I look at C. Well, I want the line to go through the points, leaving approximately the same amount above and below. Well, A is above all those points. A's out. So that leaves me with C. All right, 51. Mr. Gatlin had each of his students record how many pieces of pizza they ate during the class party. How many students ate at least 4 pieces of pizza? That means greater than or equal to 4. So I find 4 greater than or equal to is this chunk over here. So how many students is that? Well, 3 ate 4, 2 ate 5, and 1 ate 6. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So 6 students ate 4 or more pieces of pizza. 4 sets of data are displayed in a box and whisker plot below. For which plot is 75% of the data below 75? So when you have a box and whisker plot, I didn't mean to do that. When you have a box and whisker plot, if you remember, there's 25%, 25%. My eraser keeps messing me up here. 25%. I'm not real sure what it's doing. All right, bear with me. I'm sorry. Let me just start over. Go back to my pen. So your box and whisker plot is split into 4 pieces with 25% of the data being here, 25%, 25%, and 25%. So I'm trying to figure out when 75% is below a certain number. So in order to have 75% below, you're really going to be looking at that Q3 value and over. Okay, so that's 25, 25, 25, that's 75. So below, it's going to have to be below the Q3 value. This needs to be 75. So if I were to identify this piece on all of these graphs, I'm looking for the one that has 75% below the number 75, and hopefully you guys see that that is going to be letter C. Okay. So 53, what is formed where 2 rays share a common endpoint? Okay, a common endpoint, 2 rays, that is an angle. All right, 54. Laura is asked to draw a figure on her test that has 90-degree rotational symmetry. What that means is that if you rotated it 90 degrees, you're going to get the same thing every time you rotate 90 degrees. Well, 90 degrees is a quarter turn. Hopefully it's kind of jumping out to you guys that this cross figure here, if you rotated it 90 degrees every time, you get the same thing. This arrow definitely wouldn't work. D, if you rotated it a quarter turn, it's going to put the arrow up here at the top. So D is out and A is out. So the correct answer here is C. Okay. 55. Parallelogram ABCD has 4 congruent sides but no right angles. The diagonals intersect at point A. So I have this parallelogram. Draw it like this. I've got A, B, C, and D. They intersect in the middle. These are all congruent. Okay. So which phrase would not describe this transformation? Oh, a single transformation maps parallelogram ABCD onto itself. Which phrase would not describe this? So I want to know basically which one of these would give you the same thing. So a rotation 90 degrees clockwise. I'm a little unsure about that one. Let's come back. Let's think a rotation 180 degrees. That would go from here to here to here. That's definitely going to work. A reflection across the line that passes through AC. Well, that's right here. It's like folding B down to D. That would work. And then the other is passing through BD this way, folding A over to C. That would work. So let's think about it. The 90-degree one would go, B would go to C, C to D, D to A. So what's not going to happen is A. So A would not work. All right. 56. Which transformation will move polygon ABCD from quadrants 2 and 3, so that's this quadrant here, quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, over to quadrant 1 and quadrant 4? So I need this whole thing to go over this way. Well, it really needs to reflect, right? And it needs to reflect over this middle line, which is the y-axis. So that would flip it completely over. That's going to be a reflection over the y-axis. Left 3 units sends it the wrong way. Up 5 units does me no good, and the x-axis doesn't work. 57, a triangle in the coordinate plane has coordinates 3, 5, 1, -3, -3, 4. It's translated so that its new coordinates are 1, 7, -1, -1, -5, 6. So you could just compare. So 3, 5 is going to 1, 7. So how do I go from 3 to 1? That's -2. And how do I go from 5 to 7? That's +2. Okay. So if I were to represent that, the x is changed by -2. That's left to right. That means left 2. And the y is changed by +2. That's up 2. So it's left 2, up 2. So we're looking for left 2, up 2, which would have been A. 58. Using the graphs on the right, which transformation is the result of reflecting the original figure across the y-axis and then the x-axis? So I'm just going to kind of sketch over here. So if this is the y-axis, if I flip over that first, what ends up happening is this triangle does something kind of like this. That was the first one. Then we flip over the x-axis, which is right here. So that's going to make this triangle flip and go down. So which of these choices looks like that triangle? Hopefully you're saying D, figure D. 59. If you rotate a right triangle, what feature of the triangle changes? All right, a rotation. A rotation is an isometry. Isometries preserve congruence, and congruent figures have the same shape and the same size. So what changes? So does the length of the hypotenuse change? So if you were to take this right triangle and rotate it, if the hypotenuse changes, that means it either has to get bigger or smaller. Well, that's changing the size. That's out. Rotations don't change size. The position of the triangle, well, that's definitely happening, right? Because you're rotating it, you're moving it. What about the angle measures? Well, if your angle measures were to change, what ends up happening is, then look at this. If my 90-degree angle, that's a bad drawing, went to bigger than 90, that would be an obtuse triangle. That can't happen because then they're not congruent figures anymore. And the leg lengths. If my right triangle were to have bigger leg lengths, what happens? That's the size that changes. That can't happen either. Rotations maintain the same shape and size, so the only thing that changes is the position of the triangle. All right, and the last one for this section, I'm trying to figure out which rule is a reflection of A. So an easy thing that you can always do is take the point right here. That is 4, 5. And let's see, that's going to come here. 4, 5 becomes 4, negative 5. Did the x's change? X's did not change, but the y's became negative. So which rule represents that? B. So the correct answer for 60 is B. All right, so that's all for this section.